we talk business and property and stuff, but the direct question was like the concept of staying in your lane versus diversification, primarily around business, investments, etc. Right? Like there is this concept around, you got to diversify, put eggs in all these baskets as opposed to all your eggs in one basket. Like, what is your thoughts around that? And we'll put the framing of like business and investments as well.
I laugh because I'm just going to I wonder if this is you as well. This is a lesson learned through experience and pain, not from just read it in a book and go, oh, that makes sense. Did you ever when I finally got some success in business, right? So let's say like after a few years of really grinding it out, I finally got something working and started making money. And do you know what the outcome of that was?
You went and invested in like another business.
It made me dumb to think that I was good at all business. Yeah, so it's like one successful business, I'm instantly going to be great at another business. And I actually got involved in another company, right? So it's like I had cracked, we'll call it digital services, it was an agency. I'm going, this is going really well. I know how to generate leads. Wow, this can apply anywhere. So because I'm good at this, that means I should go and get involved in, which I won't name the business. I'm just going to use an example that does it. I should start a cafe because I am I'm hitting a bit here. You should see what I'm going to do to the cafe industry, right? If I can do this, I can do it. And it was just ridiculous. And I became very, very quickly aware that as I went into this other business model, that's like, this doesn't translate. Mm-hmm. The things that I know, for example, digital services, to scale, you practically only need staff and software. To scale a cafe in this example, food ordering, supply chains, logistics, maybe like compliance.
Yeah.
So a very, very, very different environment, and it made me realize that, hang on, you've cracked a little fraction of the world, not the world.
Yeah, and I went through that as pain. I still remember going to like business events when I was like studying at university and before I really sort of dove into business, and everyone's like just kind of focusing on the one. Like, don't get, what do they call it? The shiny object syndrome. Like, just don't get sort of pulled in. Like, just focus in on the one. And I remember sitting there, I'm like, it's only because these guys don't understand the value if they have multiples. Like, so I'm like, so similar. Like, I opened an agency, did very well as an agency. And I'm like, I can totally do this anywhere else. So I opened e-com stores. I got involved in like an executive coaching business, then stepped into my massive realm of SaaS. And I'm like, it's all business. What are you talking about? And so I jammed all of the profits that I'd made into all of these other businesses because I'm like, I've got systems, I got processes, I got team that I can just scale this up for. And it's just like, it's completely different. You're just like, and this was the point. It's like, okay, well, now I get it. Only because I went through that pain myself as opposed to being like, because I was that naive child that just did not just listen to what other people are saying. So I've been there, I've done that, and it has actually made me a better entrepreneur now, which is great. But I'm like, it took me a little bit to figure that out.
Well, this is where I think we should bring up an important point. If you said to me, okay, sticking your lane versus diversification for making money, I think that you really want to treat that very differently than the idea of going, well, sticking your lane versus diversification for skill. Right. So I would make the argument, like I actually learned a lot from this experience, and it sounds like you did as well, of like doing a different business, but it was a terrible financial decision.
Horrible.
Yeah. So like there are things to look at. And even in our brand, once again, shameless plug, is like in the representation of what full stack is, we're actually saying that you need to develop the full stack of skills to be a good business owner that builds wealth in your business and outside your business. The framing I've really been thinking about more and more, it's like, if you're going to stick your lane, it's like, how do you define how wide the lane is? Right? And it's like, to the point is like, if you're an agency owner and in this example, let's just pretend someone's really good at Facebook ads, right? For them to pick up and implement Google ads, right? I'm going to say that's in the lane. That's just widening the lane a little bit. That might actually be a really great way for you to add immense profit and scalability to that business. But if you're an agency owner and you go, look, I'm going to put a cafe downstairs, right? I would say that's a completely different business model.
Fundamentally, completely different freeway to a completely different destination.
Completely. So that's in the business sense though. I also would make the point and argument that this applies to investing. Like I have certainly seen people go about investing, and it's like they might be really, really good. And I'm just going to make these up. And again, it's like for thought and consideration is like they might have like implemented a property development strategy really well. Excellent property developer. But for them to go home at night and then start day trading shares, it's like I would think that's a bit of a stretch. And maybe someone's doing it and it's not a stretch for them and like good on them. But for the average person, I would say that's a ridiculous idea where it's like for that same person, if they're great at developing property and that's their wealth strategy, maybe it's developing different property or changing from residential to commercial might be their edge. So that definition of like lane width versus like blatant stupidity when it comes to diversification, I think is a really important factor here.
And the point that I want to make on this as well is just because it says stay in your lane does not mean that you can't cross over to a different highway, to a different destination. Not at all. It just needs to be that logical decision to say, I am going to go from this freeway over to that freeway. And you've got to do the work to go, okay, well, how am I going to get across there? How am I going to understand? And how am I going to go from 1 lane to 2 lanes to 4 lanes to 5 lanes so that I can understand it?
I'm just laughing as you say that. I'm like chuckling along here because it's like where it gets dangerous, right? Is I'm on this freeway. I like being on this freeway, but I want to be on that freeway as well. I'm not willing to move.
That one looks I want to be in both. I want to go to Sydney and Perth at the same time.
What is it? Second business syndrome?
It completely is. And it's interesting because I just look at it from that approach of, okay, well, you just have to understand what it really takes to be successful in it, and you can change. But the whole point is that there is nothing wrong with staying in a lane. There is nothing wrong with going, how can I make this lane wider? And there is nothing wrong with making a very deliberate, very logical jump to another lane or to another freeway in this example. Like you can, and I'm for it. The final point I am going to say is, if you think that your current lane is not going to be as good as some other lane, and so you go, oh, there's more opportunity over there, I'm going to be able to make more money over there, just look for the guys that are crushing it in your lane, and you'll get a real sense of realization of going, oh, I'm just not thinking. There are people in every industry, every type of business, every asset class. There are people doing shares, ETFs, property, residential, commercial, business, services, e-commerce, etc. Making
there's many ways to crush
millions. And I'm just like, you are the limiting belief on that one. Like this whole concept of staying in my lane is not going to make me money. I don't believe.
Don't you find the idea of this, and it's whenever I look to the people that have been astronomically successful, and I mean astronomically, like Elon Musk, the Amazons and Bezos and Warren Buffett's, Bill Gates, did they diversify? How they got really successful is like they were very well diversified, Grant.
They did. Well, they did it.
Even Warren Buffett, there's this interesting stat, is like at one point he had like 70% of his fund money in American Express, one company. Ended up being obviously a very successful investment, but it's like, I just look at that and go, it's like interesting when you really look at how the Titans have been successful, and like I would be comparing their level of diversification. It's a fascinating idea.
But even to that point, I think that they're at this point now where their concept of diversification is slightly different, right? So if you look at Musk, he's across SpaceX.
That's the key.
But I actually think that for his leverage, he's just widened his lanes. Because he's just a marketing power. So his lane is just marketing like these crazy tech companies. So if you look at it from a different lens, there's potentially he's just looking at his lane and going, cool, I'm just turning this from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. It's not that he needs to run these businesses and do all these things. It's just he needs to have a mechanism to tell the world about it. And then they're going to have their life of their own. And that is his lane.
I disagree with that so much. When he did PayPal, for example.
That's correct. If you go to the PayPal, that's very.
And then, like, even like you could make the argument that Bill Gates today and what he's doing with the Bill and Melinda Foundation and a ton of these other things. It's the same with Warren Buffett, right? And Bezos and all of them. They diversify more as they get deeper in the game. But when you look at how deep they were before they diversified what they were doing in business, it was deep. Like it wasn't. That was like again, it wasn't like they're going, do you know what? I've made it here. I've got to stop and just be very diversified.
Yeah, their step one was always master it. Once you've mastered one, you step into the next, and then you master the next one.
Of course, not financial advice.
What a good
I'm
episode.
not recommending that anyone single lanes their investments or business. Like, seek out professionals, get good advice.
Just understand the lanes that you're in. And if you're trying to be in too many lanes, just remember this. Until you've built in those reps, to your point, Charlie, and just being able to support it, it's not going to end nicely. It just needs to have that level of awareness.
Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all, and you want to dive deeper into being a full stack business owner, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now.